Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and man, it hurts to say, but the Commanders have lost Cam Sims, man. The Washington wide receiver, Cam Sims, has signed to the Raiders. He's officially gone. I'm surprised he made it this far. He survived a lot of regime changes. He survived defensive coordinator changes, head coaching changes. I'm surprised he even made it as far as he did, and every year, we get excited about, okay, maybe this is the year they finally start to throw the ball to Cam Sims more. Maybe this quarterback will learn to connect with. And then especially with Carson Wentz, with him preferring to throw to bigger receivers like the Alshon Jeffries and the Zach Ertz and things like that. And it just never turned into anything. I still believe he has some nice potential at receiver, but at the very least, you know that we're losing a really good special teams player. So we're gonna dive into Cam Sims and what we're exactly losing in him going to the Raiders. But of course, Commanders wise, we got to take a look at a lot of the especially late round draft options that the Commanders could look to replace a Cam Sims. And then you already know I have a full list of all of the confirmed prospects that the Commanders are interested in, and it's crazy because every receiver except for one clear returner, like if we draft him, we're clearly bringing him in to be a punt returner. Everybody else is 6'2" or taller. So we're gonna take a quick look at each of these guys and dive into the likelihood that the Commanders will replace Cam Sims in this upcoming draft and what round they may happen. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the free agency content. I'm about to start going into more draft content because free agency is starting to slow down a little bit, so make sure you stay tuned for everything, film sessions, mock drafts, anything draft, stuff like this. So stay tuned, and without further ado, let's get it. Well, it's official. Free agent wide receiver Cam Sims has agreed to contract terms with the Las Vegas Raiders. Source tells The Athletic. Was with Washington since 2018. And at the very least, we're going to talk about special teams. We're going to talk about him as a receiver, but I know for a fact at the very least, he's a huge boost to the locker room. And I don't like to really say locker room guy because I feel like that's just like an outsider looking in that don't really know what's going on. But he's just one of the guys, man. Everybody loves Cam Sims, man. Every time we're getting coverage from like training camp and practices and things like that, he's always one of the funniest, most outgoing, talking trash type of guys, man. So I'm gonna miss his energy just as that. Even beyond that, the Commanders players ranked the players on the team with the best shoe collection, and Cam Sims ranked number 1. Jeremy Reeves was 2nd, De'Ami Brown 3rd, Deron Payne 4th, and Taylor Heineke 5th. But we losing sneaker guy to the Raiders right now, and I'm pretty sure that's not going to necessarily affect the play on the field, but it's not going to be the same without him there. You lost Taylor Heineke as well, 5th place. So I, even just as a fan on the outside looking in, is going to miss Cam Sims from all of the off-season videos. Him always saying something a little slick or whatever. I'm going to definitely miss that. But just to do a quick history, Sims entered the NFL as an undrafted free agent in 2018 from Alabama. In 4 seasons with the Crimson Tide, he played 23 career games with 41 receptions and 2 touchdowns. When he came to Washington, the 6'5" Sims spent his rookie season on the injured reserve. In 2019, Sims was cut out of training camp but signed back to the practice squad. He spent the remainder of that season going back and forth from the practice squad to the active roster. It was more of the same in 2020 for Sims being cut in training camp and signed to the practice squad. However, he'd be promoted to the active roster in September, where he remained for 3 seasons. Never went back, never looked back, can't go back. Over the last 3 seasons, Sims has played in 47 games, making 16 starts, but primarily starring on special teams. And remember, we've been having these debates about whether he should potentially gain some weight and try to move the tight end and all kinds of stuff. But at the very least, we knew what he could do on special teams. That was certified. We ain't have to question that. Sims was a reliable receiver, and he delivered each time he received an opportunity on offense. He made his name on special teams, though, and I want to go back to that because it just seemed like whenever we threw him the ball, I mean, he had a couple of plays where it's like, oh man, you should have caught that. But the vast majority of the time, whenever we called on him to make a play, he would make it. Clutch third downs, great touchdowns. Cam Sims was huge for us, man. Whenever we finally got him involved, he delivered every time. It still amazes me that we didn't get him involved more than we did, but It is what it is. But yeah, man, special teams is where he had his real impact, and I feel like we are gonna miss him. But I already knew this was on the way. First of all, we signed Marcus Kemp from the Chiefs. We're gonna talk about him soon. But also, I feel like one thing that a lot of people didn't notice is that he's a restricted free agent every time we hit the offseason, like the past 2 years, like the 2021 offseason, the 2022 offseason. But then this 2023 offseason, this was his first time being an unrestricted free agent. So I'm not surprised that he was just like, all right, I could probably go get bigger money somewhere else. I'm an unrestricted free agent. I'm not restricted. I can go wherever I want to this time around. So I wasn't surprised that he did go to a team that, even if the Raiders aren't paying him much more money, he's potentially going to a team that maybe he'll be involved in the offense a little bit more and actually receive a target before week 7 of a regular season. But speaking of Marcus Kemp, we brought him over with Eric Bieniemy, one of those Eric Bieniemy guys that he brought over with him from the Chiefs, and they're very similar. They're both exactly 27 years old. Marcus Kemp is just 1 inch shorter, 6'4". Cam Sims 6'5". And they both can play receiver. And if I had to pick between the two receiver wise, I'd probably edge towards Cam Sims a little bit, but they both do most of their work on special teams. And they both can do both on special teams, but I like Marcus Kemp more as a blocker on special teams returning. And I like Cam Sims more on special teams coverage and going down there to make a big tackle. But even beyond Marcus Kemp, just looking at a lot of these draft prospects, and I'm pretty sure we're not going to go receiver anytime soon in the draft. Highest round possible is 4th. I even doubt that. Honestly, I don't see us going receiver until like the 6th round or later, which takes me to the list of confirmed prospects that the Commanders are interested in. You have Jonathan Mingo, who's the highest on the Draft Network's big board at 133rd overall. So he's projected to be somewhat of like a late 4th round pick. He's the highest of any receiver that we've shown clear interest in so far this entire offseason, whether it be Combine, Senior Bowl, Hula Bowl, HBCU Bowl, Combine meetings, informal meetings, all of that type of stuff, visits. And so far, we had a Senior Bowl informal meeting with him. So there's some interest there, confirmed interest. Wide receiver from Ole Miss at 6'2". Then you have Stanford wide receiver Michael Wilson, same thing, Senior Bowl informal meeting at 6'2" as well. Then you have West Virginia receiver Bryce Ford Whedon, and that was a formal meeting at the Combine, so that shows a little bit more interest. Senior Bowl and formal meetings, you can do as many as you want, but a formal Combine meeting, you're limited. Just like top 30 visits, you're limited. So if a team has a formal Combine meeting with somebody, it doesn't automatically mean that they're gonna draft those guys, but it's safe to assume that they're more interested in those guys than anybody else that they didn't have a formal Combine meeting with, unless they're just that sure about a player. And those are usually like 1st round picks types of guys. So Bryce Ford Whedon, West Virginia, formal Combine meeting, 6'3", 224 pounds. Then you have wide receiver Jake Bobo from UCLA, and they had 2 different interactions with him. They had an informal Combine meeting, not a formal one, but they did go out of their way to meet with him at the Combine, but just not one of those official ones where they have a room to themselves and everything like that. And then they also had an informal East-West Shrine Bowl meeting. So it's not a lot of people that we have confirmed multiple interest moments from the Commanders for one specific player. Most of these guys will only have one confirmed thing, like 90-something% of them. It's only a handful of guys, maybe less than 10, that the Commanders have talked to more than once. And Jake Bobo is one of those guys. And he is 6'5" out of UCLA as well. And if we're talking about a direct Cam Sims replacement, the exact same height and everything. And if we're talking about weaknesses and strengths, he's like literally Cam Sims coming out of Alabama. Even though, honestly, coming out of college, I like Jake Bobo as a prospect a little bit more than I like Cam Sims. Cam Sims went undrafted. I think Jake Bobo may somehow slide into the 7th round, maybe even the 6th. We'll see. Then you have Wake Forest A.T. Perry, another 6'5" guy. Lots of potential there, man. Lots of untapped potential. If we want to talk ceilings, you can argue that A.T. Perry probably has the highest ceiling out of all of these tall late round receivers that we're talking about today that the Commanders have shown confirmed interest in. I'm not just pulling these receivers out of nowhere. These are guys that the Commanders have talked to personally in one way or another. And then you also have Michael Jefferson, the wide receiver from Louisiana. They met with him at the East-West Shrine Bowl with an informal interview. And this guy isn't as well known as many people. A lot of people are definitely projecting him to go undrafted, but he's 6'3" with some potential to him. But being 6'3" and less than 200 pounds is a little worrisome, but there's definitely some potential there. And then literally That's all of the receivers that the Commanders have confirmed interest in so far, except for one. The only other one that they have shown interest in is Liberty wide receiver Demario Douglas, but you already can tell they're interested in him as a returner. They had a formal meeting with him at the combine, and it's reported that it was literally like a punt returner type of thing. I mean, of course, maybe he could potentially contribute on special teams as a receiver, maybe, but he's 5'8" and just really fast. And we already have a bunch of 6'1" and below guys all throughout this receiving core. So that's why I'm pretty sure the Commanders are interested in some shorter receivers, some 6'1" or smaller guys in this draft in general. But as far as the guys that they have taken the time to interview at the combine, the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl, all of that type of stuff, everybody they're going the extra mile and doing their due diligence on are guys that are at the very least 6'2" or higher, especially those two 6'5" guys, because they want to replace something that technically you could argue we never really had, because we had Cam Sims, but we barely threw him the ball. So you could tell that they have clearly identified a need, whether Cam Sims stayed or not, to find a larger receiver. And maybe they've been doing all of this again since the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl. These are things that happened weeks, months ago. So maybe they already knew they weren't going to keep Cam Sims since back then. And they've been doing their research and their film work and all of that type of stuff to figure out how they're going to replace him before he even signed with the Raiders just yesterday. But again, out of all 8 receivers that they've shown interest in, only one is shorter than 6'2", and he's a 5'8" returner. Everybody else is 6'2" and taller. It's crazy. Like, it's like very obvious what they're looking for. Very. And out of all of those receivers, the only one that they've talked to twice confirmed is 6'5" Jake Bobo. So if that's the guy that they're most interested in, I wouldn't be surprised. Very reliable pass catcher. Like, I'm really excited about A.T. Perry's ceiling. Again, to me, out of all of the receivers we talked about today, he may have the highest ceiling. I'm really excited about him, but he has catching issues. Sometimes he drops passes, and if you're going to be 6'5" and your main thing is being able to make contested catches because you're bigger than the guys covering you, you need to have more reliable hands. Well, Jake Bobo has those reliable hands. He has the strength, he has the size, body control. He's a smart guy that knows how to get open against zone coverages. He knows where to find those exact spots where the quarterback wants to throw him the ball, all of that type of stuff. But he also has the typical weaknesses of a 6'5" guy that's not projected to go in the first round. He lacks speed, he lacks agility, so he's not going to be able to necessarily separate on his own. But if you want a big target that's pretty much going to come down with the ball every time you throw it up to him, especially if you throw it at the right spot where only he can get it and the DB can't, that's your guy, Jake Bobo. And you could potentially even get him somewhere in like the 6th round, maybe even the 7th, according to the Draft Network's big board and round projections for these prospects. They have him as their 215th overall player. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. If you're interested in any of these names that I talked about, definitely go check those guys out and do your own research on any of those receivers that we discussed in this video. But I just wanted to give y'all a quick synopsis and the overall macro view of how the Commanders are approaching filling the hole that was left behind for Cam Sims going to the Raiders. Please get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Are you sad about Cam Sims leaving as well? But of course, there's no need to overreact, because it's not like our offense takes a step back from him not being on the team. But I will miss him at the very least, special teams and off the field wise. And of course, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. And as always, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors. Name is scrolling on the screen right now. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.